My brother's baby shower looked like a magazine had exploded across his backyard. Pale blue balloons floated above white folding tables. Cupcakes sat on silver trays. A banner stretched between two maple trees announcing "Welcome Baby Boy Number 5" as if Derek and Vanessa had just won a championship instead of adding another child to a house already held together by caffeine, unpaid favors, and denial. I stood near the drink table with a plastic cup of lemonade sweating in my hand, watching my mother dab her eyes, while my father shook Derek's shoulder like he had personally secured the future of the Whitaker bloodline. Nobody looked at Vanessa's swollen ankles or the 4 children chasing each other between chairs or me, standing at the edge of the celebration already feeling the trap closing. Then my mother tapped a spoon against her glass and smiled directly at me. "Claire, sweetheart," she said, lifting a pink binder covered in stickers, "we made your schedule." And that was when I smiled. The strange part was that everyone smiled with me at first. They thought mine meant surrender. In my family, a smile from me usually meant I was about to absorb another inconvenience so no one else had to feel uncomfortable. My mother, Evelyn Whitaker, had spent 32 years teaching me that peace was something women purchased with their own exhaustion. My father, Thomas, had taught me the quieter lesson when things became unfair: look at the floor until they were over. Derek stood beside Vanessa with one arm around her waist, grinning like a man who believed fertility was the same as responsibility. Vanessa rubbed her stomach and gave me that soft, pitying look she used whenever she wanted to turn an order into a compliment. "We know it looks like a lot," she said, "but you're so good with the kids. Honestly, Claire, this might be good practice for you. You know, being needed." A few relatives chuckled. I felt my smile sharpen. My mother opened the binder as if revealing a family treasure. "Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, you can pick up the older kids after school since you work from home those days. Tuesdays, you'll come by after dinner to help Vanessa with bedtime. Saturdays are flexible, of course, but we thought it would be sweet if the children had Aunt Claire Day." She turned a laminated page toward me. There were color-coded blocks with my name printed in cheerful blue ink, as if my life had been politely murdered by stationery. Someone had even added little heart stickers beside newborn support. My cousin Marla whispered, "That's adorable," and I almost laughed. Adorable was a baby onesie. Adorable was a cake shaped like a teddy bear. This was not adorable. This was a public transfer of labor from 2 parents who kept producing children to one woman they had decided had no real life. I looked at Derek and asked, "When exactly did I agree to this?" His grin flickered for half a second. Derek recovered quickly because men like my brother always do when a room has been trained to support them. "Don't start, Claire," he said, still smiling for the guests. "It's family. Nobody's asking you to raise them." Vanessa gave a wounded little laugh. "Just help us survive the pregnancy and the first year. Maybe 2, depending on how the baby sleeps." My mother touched my arm with the same hand she had used to point at my assigned hours. "You're single, honey. You have flexibility Derek and Vanessa simply don't have. That is not an insult. It's a blessing." My father cleared his throat from behind her. "Your mother worked hard on this. Don't embarrass her." There it was. Not "don't disrespect Claire." Not "maybe we should have asked." Just "don't embarrass the woman who had scheduled my freedom into nap windows." I set my cup on the table, careful not to spill a drop. "I'm not available for this," I said. For a moment, even the children seemed to freeze. 8-year-old Harper stopped swinging a ribbon wand. 6-year-old Miles looked from me to his father. Little Sadie sat on the grass with frosting on her chin, blinking like she had wandered into the wrong story. The toddler Ben kept trying to feed a cracker to the family dog. Vanessa's face tightened, then softened into something practiced and fragile. "Wow," she whispered loudly enough for the nearest table to hear. "I didn't realize helping your pregnant sister-in-law was such a burden." Derek's jaw clenched. "You're really doing this at my baby shower." I almost told him he had done it at his baby shower first, but I stopped myself. I had spent too many years explaining obvious things to people who benefited from pretending not to understand them. Instead, I reached into my purse and touched the edge of the folded letter inside. Nathan Cole's letterhead. 3 pages. Proof that my name had already been used without permission. I had found out about the paperwork 11 days earlier, because a woman from Bright Steps childcare assistance called to thank me for committing to 20 weekly hours of unpaid family care for Derek and Vanessa's household. At first I thought it was spam. Then she read my full name, my email address, my old apartment address, and a digital signature that was close enough to mine to make my stomach turn cold. The form claimed I had agreed to be an emergency caregiver, school pickup backup, an in-home support person after the birth. It also listed my employment as remote and flexible, which was funny because my job as an internal auditor had never been flexible for anyone except the relatives who ignored it. When I asked who submitted the form, the woman hesitated and said it came through Derek and Vanessa's family application with supporting notes from Evelyn Whitaker. That was the day I called Nathan, an old college friend who had become a family attorney. That was the day I stopped crying and started saving everything. So when my mother stood in that backyard waving her little binder like a crown, she had no idea she was giving me exactly what Nathan said I needed: witnesses. She had no idea that every smiling aunt, every neighbor from church, every cousin holding a cupcake was hearing her admit that my agreement was being announced to me, not confirmed by me. I looked around at the decorations, the blue balloons bobbing in the warm Carolina wind, the cake with 5 tiny fondant stars lined up like trophies, the relatives waiting for me to fold myself smaller. Then I looked at my mother. "This is interesting," I said, keeping my voice so calm that Derek's face darkened. Evelyn blinked. "What is?" I lifted the binder from her hands, glanced at my printed schedule, and smiled again. "The part where all of you forgot I'm a person, before I'm a backup plan." Then my phone buzzed in my purse, and Nathan's message lit up the screen. "Do not agree to anything. We found the email trail." For 3 seconds after Nathan's message appeared, the backyard stayed silent in that unnatural way. Silence becomes when everyone is waiting for one woman to apologize. I slipped my phone back into my purse and handed the binder to my mother. "I said no," I repeated, softer this time, because I wanted every person close enough to hear the difference between a boundary and a tantrum. "Claire, this is hardly the place for dramatics." My father stepped closer, lowering his voice, like he was calming a stranger in public. "Your brother and Vanessa are overwhelmed. You could show some grace." I looked past him at Derek, who had already turned red under his perfect baby shower grin. Vanessa was rubbing her stomach, watching me with wet eyes that had appeared too quickly. "Grace," I said, "is bringing a casserole. Grace is offering a Saturday afternoon when I choose to. Grace is not being assigned 3 weekdays, bedtime shifts, and newborn duty in front of 40 people." My mother's hand tightened around the binder until the plastic cover bent. Vanessa inhaled sharply, just loud enough to pull sympathy from the patio tables. "I cannot believe you're saying this while I'm pregnant." That was always her shield. Pregnancy made her tired, scared, and worthy of care, all of which were true. But in my family, true things were often twisted until they became weapons. Derek put his hand on her shoulder and stared at me like I had kicked over the cake. "You know what your problem is," he said. "You think independence makes you better than everyone. You sit in that apartment alone, working your little job, acting like family is some inconvenience." My little job had paid for Harper's emergency dental bill, Miles's summer camp deposit, and half the groceries when Derek was between contracts 2 years earlier, but I did not say that. People who feel entitled to your help develop sudden amnesia around your sacrifices. Instead, I said, "My life does not become available because yours became crowded." A cousin gasped. My mother whispered, "Shame on you." The party tried to continue after that, but it moved like a car with one tire blown out. People made careful conversation. Children ran through the sprinkler. Someone cut the cake into uneven slices nobody seemed hungry for anymore. I stayed exactly 15 more minutes, because leaving immediately would have let them call me emotional, and I was learning how much power there was in refusing to perform the role they assigned. When I finally picked up my purse, Derek followed me around the side of the house. "You need to fix this," he hissed. "You embarrassed mom. Vanessa's crying in the bathroom." "Then maybe you should go comfort your wife," I said. He blocked the gate with his body. "Don't play cold with me. You've always helped. This is what you do." The sentence landed harder than any insult because it was honest. He did not see me helping as generosity, he saw it as identity. Claire helped. Claire adjusted. Claire arrived with snacks and stayed late and asked for nothing. I stepped around him and said, "Not anymore." By the time I reached my car, my phone had started vibrating like something trapped. My mother texted first, "Come back inside and apologize before this becomes permanent." Then, "Derek, you made Vanessa sick." Hope you're proud. Vanessa sent one long message with no punctuation, saying she had always defended me when people called me selfish, but now she saw they were right. My father waited 6 whole minutes before sending, "Your mother is devastated." That was his specialty. Reporting a woman's pain like a weather alert and pretending it had nothing to do with the storm she created. I drove home with both hands locked on the wheel. I wanted to scream. I wanted to turn around and hand them every receipt from every favor they had renamed love. But Nathan had told me the night before that people like my family did not fear feelings. They knew how to survive feelings. What they feared was a record, so I did not answer. I went into my apartment, set my purse on the kitchen counter, opened my laptop, and created a new folder called Whitaker Consent Documents. That night, Nathan called just after 9. His voice was calm, which made the words worse. "The email trail is ugly, Claire." I sat at my tiny kitchen table, with a mug of tea I had forgotten to drink. "Tell me." He explained that the childcare assistance form had been submitted from Derek's account, but one of the supporting emails came from my mother's home internet. The message claimed to be a written confirmation from me. It said I was honored to support my brother's growing family, that I had no children or household obligations of my own, and that my work-from-home schedule allowed consistent, unpaid care. I closed my eyes, not because I was surprised, because there is a special kind of grief that comes when people write down what they really believe about you. "Did she sign my name?" I asked. Nathan paused. "She typed your full name at the bottom. It is not a legal signature in the strongest sense, but it is a representation made on your behalf without permission." I laughed once, and it sounded nothing like humor. The next morning I got the call that made everything real. "Miss Whitaker," a woman asked. "This is Angela Price from Bright Steps Child Care Assistance. We need to confirm whether you are withdrawing from the family caregiver commitment listed on Derek and Vanessa Whitaker's application." I stood in my hallway with one shoe on, suddenly aware of how quiet my apartment was. "I never made that commitment," I said. There was a pause and papers rustled on her end. "The application states you agreed to provide 20 hours weekly, including school pickup availability and emergency newborn support." "That is false." My voice shook, but I kept going. "I did not agree verbally, electronically, or in writing. I also refused a proposed schedule yesterday in front of multiple witnesses." Angela's tone changed. Not warm exactly, but careful. "Then we have a problem." I looked at the framed print above my entry table. A watercolor of a blue door I had bought the first month I lived alone. I remembered how proud I had been to choose something only because I liked it. "Yes," I said, "we do." Angela asked if I would provide a written statement. Nathan had already prepared me for that, so I said yes. Then she asked whether I had ever provided care for the children before. That question was the trap my family had built over years. "Yes," I said slowly. "I have babysat them on specific occasions. I have helped during illnesses and emergencies. I have bought supplies and picked them up from school when directly asked, and when I personally agreed. But I have never consented to ongoing care, scheduled care, emergency authority, or unpaid childcare commitments." Angela repeated parts of that back while typing. The sound of her keyboard felt strangely comforting. Every click was a nail in the coffin of the lie that love automatically meant availability. "Before we hung up," she said, "until this is clarified, their application may be placed under review." I thanked her, then sat on the floor with my one shoe still untied. My family had wanted to use paperwork to trap me. Now paperwork had turned around and asked for the truth. By lunch, Derek knew. He called 6 times, then sent a message. "What did you do?" I wrote back only after sending Nathan a screenshot. "I told the truth." His reply came instantly. "You're trying to ruin us over a form." Then Vanessa, "Do you understand what childcare costs for 5 kids?" Then Mom, "A decent daughter would help instead of running to strangers." I stared at that one the longest. Strangers. The childcare office was strangers. The attorney was strangers. The only people who were not strangers, apparently, were the ones willing to lie in my name. By evening, my mother announced in the family group chat that I had withdrawn support at the last minute and put Derek's children at risk. I watched relatives respond with sad faces, prayers, and little moral speeches about sacrifice. A year ago, I would have typed until my hands hurt, begging them to understand me. That night, I uploaded one screenshot instead. The baby shower binder schedule with my name across 3 weekdays. Under it I wrote, "For clarity, this was presented to me yesterday." I did not agree to it before, during, or after. Then I turned my phone face down and let the silence begin. The Bright Steps meeting was scheduled for the following Thursday at 10 in the morning, which meant my family had 5 full days to build a version of the truth they thought they could survive. During those 5 days, Derek sent me 14 messages, each one wearing a different costume. First came anger, "You're destroying us." Then pity, "Vanessa can barely sleep because of you." Then nostalgia. "Remember when Harper was born, and you were the first one to hold her." Then threat. "If this affects our assistants, everyone will know whose fault it is." My mother's messages were shorter and sharper. "You have become unrecognizable. Nathan is poisoning you. A daughter does not drag family into offices." My father sent only one text. "Please don't make your mother answer questions in front of strangers." I stared at that sentence for a long time because it told me exactly who he was still trying to protect. Not the children. Not me. The woman whose handwriting had finally reached a room she could not decorate her way out of. Nathan met me in the parking lot before the meeting. He wore a navy suit and carried a thin folder, not the heavy dramatic kind lawyers carry on television, but one so ordinary it made me feel calmer. "Remember," he said, "you do not have to convince them to understand you. You only have to tell the truth clearly." I nodded, though my stomach was twisting hard enough to make breakfast feel like a mistake. The Bright Steps office sat inside a brick community services building with cheerful murals on the lobby walls. Smiling cartoon families held hands under painted suns. I almost laughed at the cruelty of it. My own family arrived 7 minutes late, as if delay could still give them control. Derek walked in first, jaw tight. Vanessa followed with one hand on her belly and the other gripping a tissue. My mother wore pearls. She always wore pearls when she wanted wrongdoing to look like dignity. My father came last, eyes already lowered. He did not look at me. Angela Price from Bright Steps led us into a conference room where a second woman waited with a laptop. She introduced herself as Denise Carter, Compliance Coordinator for the Child Care Assistance Program. Nathan sat beside me. Derek and Vanessa took the opposite side of the table. My parents sat near them, but not too close, and I noticed it immediately. Distance was the first sign of fear. Angela began gently, explaining that the purpose of the meeting was to clarify the caregiver commitment attached to Derek and Vanessa's application. Derek jumped in before she finished. "This has gotten completely out of hand," he said. "My sister is angry because we had a family disagreement. She's making a paperwork misunderstanding look like fraud." Nathan did not move. Angela looked at me. "Miss Whitaker, did you agree to provide 20 hours of unpaid care weekly?" "No," I said. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. "Did you authorize anyone to submit your name as a caregiver?" "No." Denise typed something. My mother crossed her ankles under the table. Vanessa began to cry before anyone accused her of anything. "We never meant to hurt Claire," she said, dabbing her eyes carefully. "She's always been involved. The children adore her. We thought this was just formalizing what already existed." Nathan opened his folder. "Occasional voluntary babysitting is not the same as a standing childcare commitment," he said, "especially when my client refused the proposed arrangement before and after the baby shower." Derek scoffed. "Refused after we had already counted on her, maybe." Angela turned to him. "So you believed she had agreed before the shower?" Derek's eyes shifted. "We believed she would. That's how Claire is." The sentence fell into the room with a dull, ugly honesty. Denise stopped typing and looked up. "Believing someone will agree is not consent." I felt those words move through me like air entering a locked room. For years, my family had treated my eventual surrender as permission in advance. Hearing a stranger name the difference made something inside me unclench. Then my mother leaned forward with her softest voice. "Claire is a wonderful aunt. She loves those children more than anything. I understand rules matter, but families do not always operate like businesses. Sometimes we know each other's hearts." Nathan slid the first page across the table. "This is the supporting statement submitted under Claire's name." Angela read silently. Denise read over her shoulder. My mother's face did not change, but her hands tightened in her lap. Nathan continued. "Claire did not write this. She did not authorize it. It was submitted from an IP address associated with Thomas and Evelyn Whitaker's residence." My father's head lifted slightly. Vanessa turned toward my mother so fast her chair creaked. "Evelyn," she whispered. My mother looked offended, not guilty. "I helped with wording," she said. Derek was overwhelmed. Vanessa was exhausted. I simply expressed what Claire would have said if she weren't being stubborn. For a moment, nobody spoke. Even Derek looked startled because my mother had skipped denial and walked straight into confession dressed as maternal wisdom. Denise's voice changed. "Mrs. Whitaker, are you saying you submitted or assisted in submitting a statement representing Claire's agreement without her direct authorization?" My mother's mouth opened, then closed. She glanced at my father. He looked down again. Nathan slid another page forward. It was a printed screenshot of the baby shower video Marla had quietly sent me. In the still image, my mother stood under blue balloons holding the pink binder, while I stood in front of her with my arms at my sides. This recording, Nathan said, shows Evelyn presenting the schedule to Claire as a new arrangement in front of witnesses. It also captures Claire asking when she agreed, followed by her clear refusal. Derek's face went pale. "You recorded the baby shower," he snapped at me. "Marla recorded the announcement," I said. "You were all very proud of it then." Angela pressed play. My mother's voice filled the conference room, bright and confident. "Claire, sweetheart, we made your schedule." Then my own voice, calm and unmistakable. "When exactly did I agree to this?" Watching my family hear themselves was stranger than I expected. Vanessa stared at the laptop as if the screen had betrayed her personally. Derek rubbed both hands over his face. My mother sat rigid, the pearls at her throat rising and falling with her breath. My father closed his eyes when the video reached his own line. "Your mother worked hard on this. Don't embarrass her." Angela paused the recording after my refusal. The silence afterward felt bigger than the room. Denise turned to Derek and Vanessa. "Based on what we have reviewed, the caregiver commitment cannot be accepted. Your child care assistance application will be suspended, pending correction and compliance review. You will need to submit a new child care plan with written confirmation from each approved caregiver. No person may be listed without direct consent." Vanessa whispered. Suspended. Derek's anger returned because fear needed somewhere to go. "We can't afford full-time care for 5 kids. Denise's expression stayed professional. "Then the application must reflect truthful, available care, not assumed unpaid labor." My mother finally lost her softness. "This is ridiculous," she said. "Claire has helped for years. She has picked them up, fed them, stayed overnight. Are we supposed to get a signed contract every time a grandmother knows what is best for her family?" Nathan answered before I could. "You are supposed to ask." The simplicity of it hit harder than a speech. My mother turned to me, eyes bright with fury, and something that almost looked like betrayal. "You are letting him speak to me like this?" I looked at her for a long second. "No, Mom. I am letting him speak for the boundary you kept ignoring." Then Denise asked the question that changed my father's face. "Mr. Whitaker, did you hear? Claire refused the schedule at the baby shower." Everyone turned to him. I could see the old habit rising in him, the instinct to blur the truth until no one had to suffer consequences. But there was a laptop, a lawyer, 2 program officials, and his own voice, already trapped on video. He swallowed. "Yes," he said quietly. "She refused." That one word did not fix 32 years. It did not make him brave. It did not erase every time he had chosen peace over me. But it broke the family story in half. Derek stared at him. My mother looked like he had slapped her. Vanessa pressed her tissue to her mouth and began crying in a way that finally seemed real. Angela explained the next steps. Derek and Vanessa would receive a written notice of suspension. They had 10 business days to submit corrected documents. And the unauthorized statement would be noted in the compliance file. If further misrepresentation occurred, their application could be denied entirely. My name would be removed from all child care emergency pickup and caregiver listings unless I submitted written consent myself. Then Denise turned to me and asked, "Do you want any continuing role listed?" I thought of Harper in my hallway, Miles holding Ben's hand, Sadie sitting on the duffel bag. My heart hurt, but it did not bend. "Relative only," I said. "No pickup authority, no childcare commitment, no emergency responsibility without my direct written agreement for a specific date and time." When the meeting ended, Derek stood so abruptly his chair scraped the floor. "Hope you're happy," he said. The old Claire would have flinched. The new Claire felt tired, sad, and astonishingly clear. I'm not happy, I said. I'm protected. Vanessa stopped beside me near the door. Her face was pale, her makeup worn thin around the eyes. Did you really have to go this far? She asked. I looked at her belly, then at her face. You left your children outside my apartment and told them I wanted them there. She looked down. For the first time she had no performance ready. Derek said you would cave. I know. Her voice dropped. Evelyn said you needed to feel useful. A familiar anger rose in me, hot and clean, but under it was grief. I already was useful, I said. That was never the problem. The problem was that you confused my usefulness with ownership. Vanessa blinked hard, but she did not argue. Outside? My mother waited by the exit, pearls shining in the sunlight. You've humiliated this family, she said. I opened my car door and looked back at her. No, I said. I stopped doing it quietly for you. The suspension did not destroy Derek and Vanessa's life, no matter how loudly they tried to make it sound that way. It destroyed the version of their life that depended on invisible labor. Within a week, Derek had to cancel a golf weekend he had been bragging about since spring. Vanessa returned a designer bassinet she had posted online with a caption about nesting dreams. My mother called the compliance review government interference, which was funny because she had been perfectly happy to use that same system when she thought my name could help them get approved. Bright Steps required a corrected childcare plan, signed consent from every emergency contact, and a parenting resource meeting before their assistants could move forward. For the first time in years, Derek had to call people and ask, not imply, not pressure, not announce. Ask. And the answer he heard most often was a careful, uncomfortable version of no. It turned out everyone loved family, until love came with 20 unpaid hours and school pickup responsibility. The family group chat changed after Marla posted one sentence that surprised me. Maybe we should all stop volunteering Claire for things she never agreed to. Aunt Diane replied with a thumbs up. Uncle Rob, who had called me selfish 2 days earlier, deleted his comment. My mother did not write for nearly an hour, which was the closest she had ever come to defeat in public. Then she sent, "This family used to understand sacrifice." I stared at the message and felt the old guilt knock on the door, but it no longer had a key. I replied once, because Nathan had taught me the power of clean sentences. Sacrifice is offered. It is not assigned. Nobody answered after that. Later Marla called and told me people were talking privately. Not all against me. Some cousins had stories of their own little memories of my mother assigning them errands, money, hosting duties, elder care, then calling them cold when they hesitated. I had thought I was alone inside the machine. I was not. I was just the first person to unplug it in front of witnesses. For a while I stayed away. Not because I hated the children and not because I wanted to punish anyone, but because my nervous system had begun to understand what my heart was still trying to excuse. Every time my phone lit up with my mother's name, my shoulders tightened. Every time Derek texted, I expected a request hidden inside a compliment. So I made rules and kept them. No phone calls about childcare, no unscheduled drop-offs, no visits without a start and end time. No conversations that began with family should, and ended with my life being rearranged. Nathan helped me send one final written notice, stating that I loved my nieces and nephews, but I would not serve as a caregiver, emergency contact, transportation provider, overnight helper, or newborn support person without written agreement, for a specific date and time. It felt harsh when I wrote it. Then I read it again, and realized it was not harsh at all. It was simply the first time my love had been given offense. 3 months later, Vanessa gave birth to a healthy baby boy named Caleb. Derek sent me a photo at 6:42 inches the morning. No demand, no accusation. Just the baby wrapped in a blue hospital blanket, his tiny face wrinkled and furious at the world. I looked at the picture for a long time with tears in my eyes because none of this had ever been about the children being unwanted. That was the lie the adults needed. I wrote, "He's beautiful, congratulations. I hope Vanessa is recovering well." Derek did not answer until late that night. His message was shorter than usual. "Do you want to meet him sometime?" I knew the old meaning of that question. It used to mean, "Are you ready to be useful again?" So I answered with the boundary already inside the warmth. "Yes. I'd love to meet him as his aunt. I'm not available for childcare." For 2 days, nothing. Then he replied Sunday afternoon. "Just a visit." I read those words 3 times. Just a visit. It sounded small. But in my family, it was almost revolutionary. I drove to their house that Sunday with Nathan's advice in my head and a gift bag on the passenger seat. Harper opened the door before anyone else could. She was taller than I remembered, or maybe I had been away long enough to notice. She hugged me around the waist and whispered, "Mom says we have to ask before making plans for people now." I laughed, but my eyes burned. "That's a very good rule," I told her. Inside the house looked like reality had finally moved in. Laundry on the sofa. Bottles by the sink. Miles building blocks under the coffee table. Sadie singing to herself with 2 different shoes on. Ben asleep in a nest of blankets beside Vanessa, who looked pale, exhausted, and more human than I had ever seen her. My mother sat in an armchair holding Caleb, but she did not rise and place him into my arms like a task. She looked at me stiffly and asked, "Would you like to hold him?" The word asked moved through the room like a door opening. I held Caleb for almost 20 minutes. He was warm and impossibly small, his breath soft against my wrist. Nobody handed me a diaper bag. Nobody told me what time to come back. Nobody slipped a schedule under my purse. Derek watched from the kitchen doorway, uncomfortable in the silence his own restraint had created. Vanessa finally said, "Claire." I looked up. She swallowed. "I'm sorry for what I said at the shower. About you needing practice. About being needed." The room went very still. My mother looked down at her hands. Derek stared at the floor. I could have made Vanessa work harder for it. Part of me wanted to. But apology, real apology, is already a kind of humiliation for people who once lived on entitlement. "Thank you," I said. "It hurt." She nodded and tears filled her eyes. "I know. I was scared. That's not an excuse." It was the first sentence from her that did not try to sell me a softer version of the truth. Derek did not apologize that day. My father, when he arrived later with groceries, only squeezed my shoulder and said, "Good to see you, kiddo," as if nothing heavy had ever passed between us. My mother came closest near the end of the visit, when I was putting on my coat. She stood in the hallway blocking the family photos behind her. "I suppose," she said slowly, like every word cost her money. I assumed too much. It was not enough. It was not the apology a daughter dreams of after years of being used, minimized, and renamed convenient. But it was the smallest crack in a wall that had once looked permanent. I did not hug her. I did not comfort her discomfort. I simply said, "Yes, you did." Her face tightened, but she did not argue. That mattered too. Sometimes healing does not arrive as forgiveness. Sometimes it arrives as one person telling the truth, and the other person finally having no room to punish them for it. 1 year after the baby shower, I moved into a small townhouse on the edge of the city. It had a blue front door, a narrow porch, and a spare room I did not have to justify to anyone. On the first night, I sat on the floor eating takeout noodles from the carton, surrounded by boxes labeled books, kitchen, office, and one marked fragile, even though it held nothing breakable except old photographs. My phone buzzed with a message from Harper. "Can you come to my school concert next Friday? Mom said I have to ask if you're available." I smiled so hard it hurt. "I'd love to," I wrote. "Send me the time." Then I opened the folder on my laptop called Whitaker Consent Documents. I thought seeing it would make me angry again, but instead I felt grateful for the woman who had kept records while her hands were shaking. I archived the folder, not deleted it. Some proof is not kept because you want war. Some proof is kept because you survived one. So if you are the dependable one, the unmarried one, the childless one, the quiet one, the one everyone calls generous, only when you are easy to use, please hear me. Your empty evenings are not public property. Your spare bedroom is not a family resource. Your kindness is not a signature. Your love is not a childcare plan. I did not stop being an aunt when I stopped being a free nanny. I did not destroy my family when I refused to disappear inside it. I only destroyed the arrangement where my value depended on how little I asked for myself. Derek and Vanessa learned to plan. My mother learned slowly and imperfectly to ask. My father learned that silence can still be evidence. And I learned that smiling does not always mean surrender. Sometimes it means you have finally seen the trap, found the door, and decided to walk out with your name, your time, and your life still belonging to you.